Okay, so this is how I make my version of the lemon ginger blast. It's basically the original recipe, but I don't put mint in mine. Mint ice cream, yeah. Mint in my juice. Anyway, but I use the parsley and the cilantro. I already have some in there. I chopped it up. It's important to chop the cilantro and the parsley because the stems can get twisted around the things in the hopper here in the Nama J2. So anyway, I put some of that in there. I put 1 okra pod. I have 3 for the recipe, but put them in one at a time because they will end up like making the mucilage, and it slows down your juicing process. So anyway, I put some, like 2 sort of loose handfuls of the cilantro and parsley. Now I'm gonna put some quarters of apple, which I always cut open my apples and oranges just to make sure there's no mold inside. I'm gonna put a few pieces of chopped cucumber in there. And so I put the parsley and the greens, the cilantro. Usually I use dandelion, but I didn't go to the store that carries it this time. But I chop that all up after I wash it. I put it in there first, and then I put the cucumbers and the apples. I'm gonna put the ginger in there. I'm gonna put the turmeric, these 3 little knobs. By the way, check this out. This is green turmeric. It is so medicinal. It tastes crazy. I'm not gonna say it tastes like any kind of turmeric you've ever tasted because it's kind of not. I don't want to ruin the surprise of how it tastes. If you ever get to taste it, it's great. So I have some radishes, which they're also really good for blood sugar. They have inulin in them naturally, which is a prebiotic fiber. And I'm going to put the habanero. What? That's pretty big. I like it spicy. So does my husband, or he wouldn't have married me. Anyway, so you do 1 hopper full, and yeah, I go a little over the fill line. And then you let that process down, and you basically repeat that until you've used all of your ingredients. And I always do celery absolutely last, after I've done all of this other stuff, because celery clogs up the juicer, you know, at the end point here, quicker than anything else. Pineapple does it too, but not as much, obviously. And I'll show you, again in a minute, you chop the celery. Yeah, you can put a whole thing in there, but it's gonna get stuck and you're just making problems for yourself and your juicer. So, better to chop up your stuff. I know the whole point of this is like, you can throw a whole apple in there, but you don't really want to. It's gonna make everything work harder. This is day 1 of my juice fast. Yesterday was day 1, but I had a big, delicious, wonderful salad, very light, for dinner last night. And so, I can have as many day 1s as I want. I don't have a problem with that. And for personal reasons, it feels good that this is day 1 also, even though it's not January 1st. And I was going to start on January 1st and make it like a New Year's thing to start on the first day and do my juice cleanse. And you know what? Life. I'm all good with it. So it's like, you can see it's mostly empty now, and I get all the little bits down, and I repeat the process. I get a handful of the chopped cilantro and parsley, and I stuff it in there, and maybe a little more. We have 6 bunches total, 3 of each, so you wanna really pack it in there and get it done. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with a whole bunch of greens at the end and not any more of your hearty cucumber and apples to like push it through. Plus, this distributes the flavor better, I guess. I've noticed if you are batch juicing and you do like all your cucumbers and all your apples and all your greens, you're gonna end up with like spots, and you almost kind of want to stir it, which of course, oxidation, no one wants to do that. If I have a lot of foam, sometimes I'll give it like a little whisk, with a whisk, just to sort of mix it in real gently. There we go, some lemon. And this is also a wonderful practice for patience, which I have always had to sort of struggle with. Big long-term goals, I can be as zen as the moon, like, yeah, 10 years from now, we're gonna get that done, and I have all the confidence. But if I'm standing here waiting for something to happen in front of me, ooh, I'm antsy. I wanna get it done. That's why I didn't learn how to successfully make a pancake till I was like 23, because I didn't have the patience to wait until it was done before I tried to flip it, and then it would tear, or I'd wait too long and then it would burn. Anyway, ADHD life. I love the lemon ginger blast. I'm going to sit here and talk for a minute to sort of fill space. But it is one of my favorite things to drink. I put way more apples in it than Lou suggests, obviously, but I'm making I think this usually comes out to around 4 or 5 quarts, depending on the size of things and how much I put in. But I keep my recipe pretty consistent, and I usually come out with 4.5 to 5 quarts. And yeah, I put in a lot more apples. This is 7 apples from my parents' 7 beautiful children, and I really love the way it tastes. I've made it before, and I've added pineapple or orange or other things like that, but apple is really good for you. It's got that healthy pectin in it, and it's got a lot of benefits. So I don't think apple is a bad thing. I don't think it's gonna slow down the digestion enough or whatever, it's not cleansing enough. I know if you're talking about just apple juice, then maybe that could be an argument. But apple juice is very dissolving. It's very cleansing. It's really good for getting rid of excess calcium deposits in the body. So I think apples are a benefit, and I love to eat them when I'm not juicing. I'll just eat an apple, especially with almond butter. I know, not supposed to mix it, but it's delicious. And it's raw, so why not? Okay, a little lemon, put some apple in there. And see, this works perfectly for me. I am not a fine dining chef. I was a baker, and so I'm all about getting a little messy in the kitchen, and green juice is all about that. I clean it all up afterwards and we're good to go. So it's not, it's not a problem. Nama, I treat this thing with love and respect, don't worry. So another thing that I like to share about the lemon ginger blast is dandelions. Dandelions are such a deep cellular detox, especially for heavy metals. Next time I go to the store, I'm going to get some so that I can add them to the next few batches. They do have a tendency, like cilantro, to muddy up pretty quickly in the fridge if you don't prep it. So when I get it home, I like to open it up the bunches and sort of clean them and make sure there's no little funky bits in there. And then I wrap them up in a flour sackcloth is basically what I use, or I'll use a dish towel or a teacup towel or that kind of thing that doesn't have any of the lint on it. And so I'm going to get one other tool of my process here. I'm sure you guys. So because this strainer catches a lot of pulp, you'd be surprised how much pulp comes out of this. I get a stainless steel rounded edge. This is a butter knife, but you can get whatever you want that's sort of this shape. And I just sort of press it through the strainer. I just sort of sift it and press along the bottom, and it keeps the strainer from getting overfilled, which does happen occasionally if you're really doing a big batch. I tried to do an 8-quart bowl one time and do a really big batch, but the 8-quart bowl this little strainer is not wide enough to sit on it. And I'm not going to move the camera because I have such good positioning right now, but I'll take a picture from the top and show you guys how I set it in there, and it just fits perfectly. So I just sort of, you know, gently push it through, and that allows more juice to go in there. So that's empty. Push it down a little bit. More greens. I'm just going to sort of clean up my cutting board of all of that, and then I'll put in 2 apples. I still have 3 bunches to go to chop, so I've got a lot of cucumber here. I'm going to add some of that, and we're done with all of our little accessories. We already put in the habanero and the ginger and the turmeric. So now I feel, hold on. We can just, you know, push through the big stuff and it'll be done really quick. This is my daughter, Donna, trying to make a cameo. What am I trying to do? You're distracting me, my love. Let me finish making this juice, okay? So, I almost put an extra dose of the greens in there, which would be fine. But then, you know, it's... I'm gonna put the last okra pod in there on the top. If you have like a small piece of cucumber that can fit in the top of the hopper, that's great, but I usually just open it up and stick it in there at the end when it's kind of empty. And I think that's better for the hopper too, to like clean out in between your little mini batches in here, because if you just continually keep feeding it, that is when I notice that it gets overwhelmed. Not that it gets too hot really, or too warm, but you know, this tends to clog a little bit more when there's just continual stuff going through there at this level. Like if you're just making 1 quart at a time, then maybe that's different, but I never do that. I don't have time to clean the juicer in between each and every quart of juice that I make. I make 5 because I batch for myself and for my husband, Carlos. And you know, if Donna wants any, if she will drink it, then I'll give it to her. This is too spicy for her. She doesn't like ginger, and obviously the habanero is like kicking, so she doesn't drink this one. But I do make her a green juice that's like apples and with parsley and cilantro and a little celery and cucumber. I just don't put in any of the other stuff. And I'll put in more apples, or I'll do green grapes. That's one of her favorites. It's a green grape, leafy green, cucumbers, spinach, you know, whatever. And I always put an apple or 2 at the end of those kind of juices, because then that firm texture really helps push through any of the softer stuff. Like when I do pineapple juice, I always put an apple or 2 in at the end to push it through. But you have to wait until all the other stuff is almost gone, or else it just mixes in with it. And I'll show you that the next time I make a pineapple juice. Oh yeah, see, my life. Let's see, I've got some apple chunks. I'll put in a cucumber chunk again, let that go. All right, I'm almost done with all the greens. And then we can move on to the celery. And then my favorite part comes, the drinking of it. So, question for anyone who's ever done a juice cleanse: do your lips get super dry when you're doing a juice cleanse? It's like I'm drinking 7 quarts a day and my lips are cracking. Is it detox? Is it the pineapple juice? What's going on? What's your experience with that? I know that when I'm making a whole lot of citrus juice during a cleanse, my hands dry out and get cracked. But I think it's the enzymes, the bromelain in the pineapple that's literally eating the skin off your fingers. So imagine the good that it's doing to all the junk in your trunk, right? So let's see. I'm going to put the rest of these in here because we've got enough room, and I want to get started chopping my celery. See, patience. But this, in fact, works for me at this point. I've got a system set up that allows me to have minimal waiting time. So this is an 8-quart bowl, and you can see how it's, well, you can't really see, but it's way bigger, of course, than the 5-quart bowl that I used to collect the juice. And that is what I will put all of my vegetables in when I soak it in baking soda water, and that is what I will put the clean vegetables in after I've rinsed them off to hold them. I have 2 8-quart stainless steel bowls, and they are both pretty indispensable. I could probably use 3, but then I wouldn't have kitchen counter to do anything else that I need to do. So if you ever go to a restaurant supply store, pace yourself. You could easily get overwhelmed with all of the fun stuff that's in there, but you don't need it all, trust me. So just using the butter knife again to sort of push through some of the juice. It was starting to fill up in the strainer. So just do that so it can maintain a little headspace for the juice that's still coming. And I don't try and like mix it around too much. I just sort of press it gently through the bottom. And now I'll start cutting this celery. Always just cut the little top bits off, the browned bits, and I don't know about all the whole don't juice celery leaves, don't juice this part, that part, too pale, too dark, I don't know. I just cut the tops off and I cut the bottom off and I juice the rest. And I do it around this size. And I'll just juice them all and stick them in that big 8-quart bowl so that I can keep my cutting board clear while I'm cutting the next little bit, head of celery. All right. My husband always has my back. Gave me a little light. Thank you. It's getting dark outside. We did just have the winter equinox, so that means that every day now is slowly getting a little bit more sunlight and a little bit less darkness. Once we hit spring equinox, that day is an equal amount of light and dark, hence the name. That is the beginning, the true beginning of the new year in more nature-based calendar living, which I follow. Of course, I am not out of the technological modern world, so I also fall under the Gregorian calendar. Yesterday was the legal New Year's, but spiritually and environmentally and physiologically, most important, physiologically, we are still in rest mode. It is still deep winter. The bears are hibernating. The birds are slow. The squirrels are eating the nuts that they've gathered last year, and they're huddled up in their warm little cozy nests. So while juicing on January 1st may be the modern way of doing a juice cleanse, it's not necessarily the most urgent time to do it if you are trying to follow more nature-based timelines. Like if you're working with your circadian rhythm and you understand that there's a 24-hour rhythm, you also have to start looking at the circadian rhythm of the seasons and how that can really affect what you're doing, you know. So don't beat yourself up if you start a juice cleanse on January 1st and you decide you want to have some warm soup, even if it's raw. Like you can still do a raw warm soup. It would be kind of hard to make a warmed juice. I don't know if I could do that, but I do like my juice room temperature. I don't like it straight out of the fridge. Even after I've prepped it and put it in the fridge, like if I've batch juice the night before, when I get up in the morning, I will take my green juice out that I'm gonna have for breakfast or first meal or whatever, and I will let it sit on the counter and sort of come up to room temperature while I drink a warm lemon water or something to sort of warm myself up, especially here in the winter time. Like, I do not like the cold, okay? Bless y'all folks who like the cold, but it ain't me. So I will always rather go outside and get sweaty than sit inside and freeze, or go outside and freeze. Like, no. But what that means is that my body needs extra warmth, and usually people get that through food. So if you are like me and you don't like the cold and you're like, how could I ever do a juice cleanse? Everything is cold. It's not. It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying heat up your juice. I'm just saying you don't have to let it be refrigerated cold. And even in the winter, like right now, I use the water from my tap, and because it's cold outside, the water is extra cold. This juice is going to be cold. It's going to be cold enough that you don't need it to be any colder for flavor's sake. You know what I mean? Now, if you're talking about the purest view of digestion, when nothing should be too hot or too cold for your body to digest it perfectly, it needs to be body temperature, 98.6 degrees. But no one's going to drink a 98.6 degree juice. This, not me. So you just do it at the temperature that's comfortable for you without it being too cold, in my opinion. And like, yeah, I love a cold juice on a hot day, but if you're focusing on the detox, the big D, then let it come up a little bit when you first get up in the morning, especially. And like I said, drink some warm lemon water or something to sort of help your body wake up slowly. Give this another little push through. Of course, celery has a lot of pulp that comes out with it, and so I make sure to sort of strain that through the strainer, push it through. Now, patience, Ruby. I'm going to put this in the 8-quart bowl. I was about to try and put it in the hopper. Did you see that? Not a good idea because that's still full. Use your patience. But I'm also trying to cultivate the habit of mise en place. So if anyone has ever worked in a kitchen, hopefully you know what that means. But it's French for everything in its place. So what that means is that you maintain your workspace, you maintain the cleanliness, you keep your hand towel right here so that you can wash or dry your hands anytime you need. This is also a psychological, therapeutic practice for me, because as much as I love making food, I cannot stand the sensation of my hands being wet or dirty or sticky or anything. Being autistic, I have sensory issues, and one of them has always been, even before I was diagnosed, self-diagnosed, what up? Even before that, I knew that I had sensory issues my whole life. It was one of those things that you slowly process about yourself, and then when you're older and it's not so traumatic to think about, maybe, I don't know, or you can't avoid it anymore, which is more likely, I think, and that was the case for me. I had to acknowledge and name and give voice to the issues that I was having so that I could process them and deal with them in a healthy way instead of just getting overstimulated and having meltdowns all the time because my hands were wet. So, for example, when I wash the dishes now, I have a big pair of rubber gloves, and not only do I have a pair that I'm using that are fresh and new all the time, I have an extra box underneath my sink at all times. If I ever get down to the last pair, I run out and buy another one, because one little pinprick or a knife point in your gloves, which is what always happens, probably to your dominant hand, so it's always my left glove, and then it starts to leak water into it, and then it gets icky, and then the whole point is ruined, and it's actually worse than if you just didn't even wear some gloves, because now you're thinking of all the yuck that's in your gloves as well as the water. So no. So I just keep a bunch of gloves around the house, and I tried for a while to like pair up my right gloves that wouldn't be messed up. So then I'd be wearing like 2 right gloves, and that just doesn't work unless it's an emergency or something. But I was raised with a very frugal post-World War II great-grandma in the house until I was like 14, like 11 or 12, and then she went into an assisted living facility. But she can do everything. Like if you use a paper towel to dry your hands, which why would you do that? You have a tea towel. But if you did, you straightened it out, you unfolded it, and you laid it down somewhere to dry so you could use it again. That was the mentality of post-World War II. You just made do with what you had because you didn't have probably hardly anything. And that also informs a lot of the food practices. Huh? That's right, it's the Depression era. It was post-Depression that my husband was reminding me of the term for it, and it's true. That was the Depression, and then, you know, like my grandparents grew up in the Depression. And so I was gifted that thriftiness that comes from being blessed with the presence of your grandparents. I'm tearing up because I miss my grandmother today. Or just talking about her, of course. I miss her. She's been gone a while, and my last grandfather left us last year, and I miss them all the time. And I really try and incorporate their wisdom that I was given into my daily life. You know, that is the true gift of grandparents, is that they can pass on the knowledge that they gained through all of those times. So I'm not done yet. I've still got some celery to go. Let's put that in there. And we'll keep it going, and I'll keep storytelling. So my grandmother, her grandma name was Karki. Her full legal name was Sharon Hooper Locke. But we all called her Karki because I, as her eldest grandchild, named her when I was starting to talk. I think they were trying to teach me grandma, and then they were also trying to teach me maybe like car keys or something. That's my theory. But anyway, I called her Karki, and it stuck, and everyone in her whole family called her Karki. Her kids, her grandkids, you know, she had 4 daughters, so all of her son-in-laws called her Karki. Gosh, she was so special, and she was one of the real first influences I had into nutrition. She was a follower of Adele Davis. I've never read her work, and I probably won't for what I'm going to call up-to-date nutrition advice. But for her time, you know, she was on the pioneering edge of nutrition, whether I agree with her nutrition beliefs or not. You know, she wasn't vegan. She wasn't even necessarily into whole foods. She did promote a lot of vitamins and stuff, but she promoted healthy eating and less processed foods, I think, was her gig. And, you know, we ate very healthy at my grandma's house, and thus at my mother's house when she was cooking for us. So, okay, I don't know if you can see this, but this juice is almost full. We've got a good 5 quarts here. So what's left in this is going to fill the juice up to the brim. And so what I do when it's too full to lift and pour, that's your cameo, no mas. I get my 1 cup scooper, my dry weight, my dry measure cup scooper, and then I will use that to divvy it up until there's enough room for me to pick it up and pour it. So I'm going to move the cutting board now that that is done, and I'll just rinse it out off camera, but right next to it, so you'll still hear. by the way, get a sharp knife. This is the sharpest knife I have. It's a little big, but it's also big enough that I can cut watermelon with it. I can cut pineapple with ease. This is from a thrift store. I mean, it's a good one. What brand is it? I'm getting to that age where I'm gonna have to look over, so hopefully the Juice Cleanse clears all that up. It doesn't say what brand it is, and it doesn't matter. It's a badass knife. Molybdenum steel is what it says here, and then it's got like a little brand or something. But anyway, get a sharp knife. If you don't know how to hold a knife, by the way, that's how you hold a knife. You don't do this, okay? You don't, none of that jazz. You don't hold it like this, which I'm tempted to do sometimes. I'm tempted to hold it like that when I'm cutting through something really hard, but that's gonna jack up your joints, okay? And I've experienced that. So you gotta hold it, see, straight, flat. Okay, there we go. That's how you hold a knife when you're cutting stuff. And you start with the tip and you slice down. That's how you cut something, okay? Anyway, we're finished making the juice. I'm gonna go get my jars, which are right here. Let me move my beautiful cutting board full of celery leaves. And I like wide mouth jars because they're easier to pour into and easier to clean. See, watch this. Not everyone may be able to do that, but I can with a glove and a sponge. So, all right, I'm closing that. I'm gonna finish off the rest of this juice that's in the strainer. I mean, it's like soup in there, and I guess if people like green soup, I don't. I don't like smoothies, even savory smoothies that people call soup. Like, that's not my gig. But I do love green juice, and I like green smoothies, I guess, if it's sweet enough. To me, a smoothie will always be something sweet. In my mind, that's just sort of the way that I interpreted it, especially, and soups will always be savory. So don't give me a non-sweet green smoothie, and don't give me a super sweet green soup. Same with the temperatures. Like, let's just keep it traditional. I'm a traditionalist in some ways. What did I hear? What's that line? I don't remember the movie that it was in. She said, "So I'm a schizoid liberal." And that sort of is me in a nutshell. Except I wouldn't call myself a liberal in the modern political sense. I won't go there. I promise. But I am a revolutionary feminist. That's what I call myself, and how I describe the work that I do, which I'll just finish up while we're doing this and talk about that for a minute. Revolutionary living and revolutionary feminism, especially, I think must include how we live inside the house, okay? One of my favorite terms, which some feminists consider outdated because it was from the feminist movement from the 70s, is the personal is political, okay? So what we put into our bodies, our spiritual beings, our physical beings, like what we ingest, what we accept from the world into ourselves is sacred and spiritual. And that's the reason that we're all vegans, right? Is because we want, or if you're not vegan, maybe that's the reason that you should look into considering going meatless, going plant-based. You don't have to take up the word vegan until you're ready for that title. And I can talk more about that later, because I do think that vegan is not just a healthy diet. It is specifically a lifestyle about reducing harm, or as much as possible. You can't eliminate harm unless you're off grid at this point, in my opinion. But you can reduce harm, and that is the point of being vegan. And so to me, being vegan means not only being less cruel, as minimally, invasive as possible to the world, not just for the animals, but for the people as well. And so I will always only buy foods and products that support anti-genocide practices if I can. I'm on an iPhone, but I waited until my old phone was falling apart, and then I got a used one that like came with the package of my cell phone service, you know. At some point in the future, I will be looking into getting a refurbished phone that does not contribute to conflict mineral production. Basically, if you're not knowledgeable about that, you can go look up the Democratic Republic of Congo and all of the atrocities that are happening there on our behalf, so that we can have Teslas and cell phones and LED lights and HP printers and all sorts of other stuff. So, that being said, go vegan for the world and reduce your impact as much as possible. I don't even know where that came from, except that that's why we live this life, right? We only want to put the best into our bodies, and we can't call it the best if it's on the blood of another creature, and that includes humans. Come on, vegans, raw vegans especially, like we're high vibing over here. We're talking about how wonderful and beautiful our juicing is and our life, and raw vegan food is so high frequency, and we take videos, we take expensive videos of the electricity in our fruit, you know. If you want to focus on that, also focus on the energy that it comes with, the energy that it is endowed with through its process of production. Okay, so I am definitely one of those that fills it up to the top when I batch juice. Like, you really want, I'm going to put that over here. You really want the least amount of oxygen as possible in your juices. So if you'll notice, there's a little bit of like the okra mucilage floating around the top of my juice. I love it. I'm so down for it. It really like helps my stomach. I've always loved okra, Adana. And it's something that I encourage everyone to try and get their hands on and put in their green juice. Don't put too much. I've done that before. You're going to end up messing up your juice. Not the juice itself, but just the juice process. It gets really slimy in the juicer. So, like I said, spread them out. Don't put them all in there at once. I've done that before, and it turned into a whole Ghostbuster situation. You know, like I had slime in the ice machine for real. And if you're not from Houston, you don't get that reference. But Marvin Zindler was hilarious. Look him up. And he was really a good dude, as far as I understand. I don't know about all that. One more juice, one more jar. Do you know how many jars I collect? And because I juice, it's totally legit. But I have probably like 45 ball jars or canning jars in my house. I've got about 10 of these big wide mouth ones. I have probably like 12 or 13 of the small narrow mouth jars, and I have a couple of more unopened packages over in another kitchen, because you never know when you need extra, especially, okay, ADHD folks, y'all will get it, and especially the ladies, like that week before your cycle starts when your ADHD just ramps up and you can barely function. I break a lot of glass. Speaking of which, that didn't break, thank goodness. But anyway, so I always keep a few extra on hand. I am gonna reach you guys over here, show you the finished product, and then say goodbye. Thank you for listening. These are my beautiful juices that I made. This is the pulp that's left. You guys don't need to see all that. Thank you for coming and watching me do this wonderful demonstration of how I make the lemon ginger blast. And I make it, I think this is the easiest and cleanest process I've seen about how to batch juice. You know, when I got the Nama2, I didn't even bother with the little cup container that they gave you with that little strainer. Like, what is that going to do? You're going to be sitting there straining and like filtering the strainer and cleaning it. That irritated me before I even tried to use it. I was like, no. So I work with this process. I've done this before with other juicers. Of course, the Nama J2 is amazing. It's really wonderful. Oh, you guys see my Christmas cookie tin decoration collection up there? Yeah, look at all those. Oh, I got a lot. You guys want to see them? Let's see. How am I doing this? There we go. There we go. I have a bunch. I have some old ones. It's hard to see because they're at the top. Anyway, happy post-holidays and happy New Year's if this is when you celebrate. And get juicing, whether it's your New Year's or not, you know, whether you're going to start a cleanse or not, just make some green juice and drink it because it's delicious and it is so good for your body.